Shifters, welcome back. Well, since I did a live stream, it's been actually a couple of months since I did a live stream. Just sort of finishing off the year, getting through Christmas and New Year's, keeping my head up as much as possible when it comes to the restrictions. Had a pretty good Christmas, New Year's at Clyde, and then it's January, and so I pulled my bootstraps up this month and we're like, okay, what am I going to do this year? I've done over 300 episodes. I'm actually at 320 something now. How am I going to keep pushing forward with the podcast? And so I made my my ultimate wish list of people I wanted to have on the podcast, whether they've been guests in the past or guests before, but I haven't spoken to Kelsey for 2.5 years. So it's speaking to Kelsey Ramage from Trash Tiki Collective, as well as a few other things in Toronto. She's absolutely amazing. I'm going to link the episode I did 2.5 years ago for her origin story. But last time we chatted was Toronto Cocktail Conference 2019. I was in between trips to Singapore, and I cannot believe that it was 2.5 years ago. So I'm feeling like this last 2 years has been crazy. So welcome, Kelsey. How are you?
Hi. I can't believe it's been that long since I've spoken. Like,
it's mental.
Yeah, it feels like everything and nothing has happened in between that time.
Well, my daughter's gone from like this tall to this tall, and I'm like, Aww. How did that happen? And she's like, well, you've been at home and you've actually seen me for the last 2.5 years, which is nice. But yeah, it is crazy to think like 2019 doesn't seem like too long ago. Like we were all at Toronto Cocktail Conference. Like I visited Supernova while I was there, and like a whole bunch of other things. And then like it was only 6 months later that everything imploded all over the world, which is just crazy to think.
Yeah.
So you've been busy this last 2.5 years.
Yeah, I have.
You've always kept yourself busy, but like I hate to use that pivot word because I don't want to do that pivot word because everybody uses it. But like with Supernova and everything, you have just kept trucking along.
Yeah. I guess the last time I saw you was like right before I opened Supernova. So I had in the first 6 months I had opened and then had to shut Supernova. I guess it was just about a year later, but it was like it you know what, like I think it was a blessing in disguise. It was sort of this space that was not pandemic proof whatsoever, and I don't think this is, I mean, not to be too doom and gloom, but I don't think this is the last we're going to see of something like this. So like just being able to be a little bit more multifaceted in the new iteration will be like a big positive. So yeah, I mean, I did that, and then had a number of projects in the interim. Should I go into those?
Well, yeah, you were like one of the very first people in Toronto to start really pushing the cocktails to go. Like what was it, Dolly's Trolley?
Yeah, Dolly Trolley. Which
awesome.
Nobody knows how to spell, including myself. Still, I have to be like, how do you? Yeah.
Has it got an E or has it got no E?
It's got an E. Yeah.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those of us that speak the Queen's English still, I suppose. Yeah, we actually launched Dolly Trolley while it was still illegal to do so. And that's why it was called Dolly Trolley Drinks and not Supernova Drinks. I did it incognito, and you know what? I was just like, I don't care what the laws are. I'm doing it anyway. That way it wasn't, directly attached to my liquor license. It was just Instagram marketing, and that was it. I don't recommend doing that if anybody is like watching this and looking for ways to launch their online business. That's not the way to go about it. But I think what it did do was kind of show the governing majority here that perhaps it's not all that bad, that people are trying to just make a living and do so in the responsible way that they have been doing for the years and years prior that they've been owning and operating bars. So, I think it really did help with that. But yeah, I was one of the first, like when I saw things happening in New York and LA and like, the bigger cities starting to shut down, I was like, it's just a matter of time before it hits here. So like, let's make sure our marketing is together before we launch the thing.
Was it successful for you?
Yeah, it was really good in the first, it was a bit of a slog, to be honest, in the first while. And then things always slow down in the summer because people were out in parks and whatnot. But I think the fall of 2020, we just got so busy that I was like, I don't even know how to do this. Like, how do you do like, I don't like, you go from making drinks behind a bar and you know how to do that public facing thing, but then how are you, how do you pivot, I guess. And you create your back of house like assembly line of like putting boxes together and sticking stickers on bottles and all of that, crazy stuff that you just have to learn how to be very efficient in.
And are you still doing Dolly Trolley?
I
Here and
decided
there?
to shut it down. Yeah, I decided to shut it down right before I launched Black Lagoon.
Mm.
We were going to host Black Lagoon's drinks to go on Dolly Trolley, but to be honest, Black Lagoon was so wildly busy that there was no way. There was no way I could handle anything else on top of that. So I'm very thankful that I did decide to close Dolly Trolley. It might just kind of remain dormant for a little while until Supernova comes back around, and maybe we could do a retail line at the same time and kind of relaunch everything under the same platform. But for now it's dormant while I cook up some more ideas.
So that was a perfect segue into Black Lagoon, because you did a series of pop-ups late last year. Was it late last year? It was around Halloween time, wasn't it? I was watching your social media, and your costumes every single other week were just exhausting. I was just looking, I was like, I just want to throw a shirt on and just go to work and chuck my chef's coat on and I'm done. And your outfits were insane.
Yeah, Aaron and I launched it with Aaron Hayes. We did it for the last, I guess, 3 weeks of October. And it was like, we were imagining, people were excited about it and they were excited to have a reason to like dress up and go out. So it was a lot of fun. Those costumes were definitely planned well in advance, and just had kind of like a closet in the basement that 20 minutes before shift, it was like, no, I need like, just give me 20 minutes. I'll be right here. You come ask questions, but like, I'm not on the floor.
So basically, it's exactly what social media is like. We all think that you spent like all afternoon getting dressed, and it's 20 minutes before service, chuck on some makeup and hit the floor.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
And it was successful. I saw all our mutual friends and brand ambassadors and everybody dropped by and like really made it successful.
Yeah, I think the brand partnerships are really, really important part of it. But it was also like, I love dressing up. I love doing all of that, and I love making like our drinks concept for the menu started from a color palette. So like Aaron and I just we work really well together. I think we banged out all the drinks in like, a 45-minute phone call, and then both went our separate ways and split the menu out and did it between the two of us. So it was like, it all just came together. It was super fun, and we're gonna try, and we've just started working on it again this year, if you can believe it, in January. But I think we're gonna do like, some tropical sort of mugs to go alongside it, a whole bunch of merch, some more cities to be included. So yeah.
So is Black Lagoon the next Halloween sipping Santa?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, like don't tell Cocktail Kingdom, but like we're coming after them.
Oh, that's fantastic. So over the last 2.5 years, like I think the last time we chatted, it was Toronto Cocktail Conference, and you were just about to open up Supernova. You were pretty cagey at that time, and I think I went away to Singapore again for 2 months, and I came back and did some Toronto Cocktail Week, and that's when I visited you guys. And the doc got me very, very intoxicated at your place, to the point it was one of my first hangovers in like 2 or 3 years, and maybe since. But it was a great time, and so over the last 2.5 years, I know that you were not struggling, but you were still sort of like working through your head how you're going to go from like doing pop-ups and the Trash Tiki Collective all over the world to opening your own venue and building that out and sort of creating that space and that brand. What did you learn over the last 2.5 years when it comes to the interconnecting of everything you do?
I mean, it was when you said that, it quite honestly, like, it was a huge struggle. I think we finished the tour, and you have all of this like constant exhaustion happening at the same time as like a whole bunch of noise and excitement around all of these pop-ups, and then all of a sudden, it definitely doesn't stand still, because you're opening a venue, and we all know that's insanely busy, but you are in one location, you're working on one thing, and so there's like a change of focus. So I think while I was opening Supernova, I did definitely struggle with that transition. And it did take me, I think if this pandemic didn't happen, I'd be in a very different place. And I don't know if it necessarily would have been a good place. if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful that it happened, and you know what, it gave me time to like sit down and like shut up and stop trying to get ahead of yourself, and like maybe just work on, you know, what you actually like and enjoy doing. And for me, that just it did take a lot of quiet self-reflection, like a lot, and a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
therapy, well, maybe a lot of therapy. um and you know what, honestly, like doing the pop-up thing was awesome while I was doing it, but I do enjoy being in one place and, you know, rediscovering like the drinks at Supernova were very heavily based in locality, and I do enjoy talking about that. So it was figuring out, well, you know, what parts of sustainability do I want to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of? Who do I really like working with? And then, you know, I had to sit down and make a list of like why am I actually in this industry? What do I actually like doing? And for me, that came back to like, you know, being in one place, creating conceptual bars that have something besides just drinks going on. I think it's really important to be. I love, you know, having the drag community around, and with Black Lagoon we had lots of like burlesque performances, and I love that, like, you know, connection between art and drink and food. So that in Supernova's new iteration that I'm working on for next year is going to be a lot more important connection for me to make personally.
I think a lot of people have gone through that. I've gone through that myself this year. Like it's been a very weird couple of years, but my biggest struggle, and I've it sounds like the same for you, is like there's things that I wanted to do 10 years ago and things that I expected myself to achieve and do all this sort of stuff, traveling and consulting and all that sort of stuff. But then also the other side of me is like, you know what? I really like being back at Clive's and running Clive's with the team I have. I love being at home at 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon with my wife and having a date night in my tent in the back with the fire pits and stuff. And I'm like, but then I start struggling with, in one side of my brain, I should be doing X, Y, Z. And then the other side of brain is, but I'm really happy and content over here. Like you think that you want that like sort of drug of opening places and like consulting and traveling and all that sort of stuff. But then you're like, yeah, but I could just have one place to hang out and really do some fun stuff and enjoy myself.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it comes down to balance. Like I really enjoy just being in Toronto, and
Hmm.
maybe, you know, it's starting to look like, as I'm planning out this year, is just learning how to say no to stuff,
Hmm.
and knowing what my limits are in terms of, you know, I think that like one trip a month is probably my max right now, because I've got a bunch of other stuff that I want to see develop. And I know that when I'm traveling, like it's exhausting. So you don't work on your own personal projects. You're
Hmm.
working on something for somebody else. So that's been the biggest thing, is just like learning what and how to say no. It's
And
a hard
do you
one.
think as an entrepreneur, like you diversified post pandemic, do you think, and I hate to always find a silver lining in the pandemic, but like we've all got our health, we've got our family still, and all that sort of stuff. Do you think the pandemic has changed the industry fundamentally in the way that we were kind of archaic and like looking at certain things certain ways, and that's the way it's always been done? Which I hate that saying. This is the way it's always been done. Yeah, I know, like that's great, but doesn't mean it should be done that way. Do you think the pandemic is going to bring some positives out of everything?
I think so, for sure. Like if it's done one thing, it's like highlighted how messed up our industry is, and how we've, especially in North America, like there'll be labor bylaws that
Hmm.
go into effect in certain places, and then for some reason we just think that as an industry as a whole, we're like slithering our way through, like, oh, we don't have to do that, doesn't apply to us. Well, it does, and that's why we've lost such a massive number of people to other industries, is because the hours are better. You can eat not over a garbage can. um, like you can have a family, you can take care of
Hmm.
a dog or a child. Like people are seeing that they need to actually be able to have a life, you know, in conjunction with this industry. Um, and so I think that, not for everybody, like I'm not going to speak for, there's a lot of businesses I
Hmm.
think that just have like remained with the status quo, but like a lot of, for myself especially, I did a talk for Tails last year, and had so many conversations with different business owners to see their perspective on like offering benefits, whether that's feasible, paying a living wage, controlling hours and seeing how they're tackling that. And I did get a lot of different perspectives. And you know what? I did not have, after talking to, I think I talked to like 20 people. And then Amanda Gunderson from the US talked to another, 10, 20. We both came back and said, okay, there's definitely not one clear way. There's not one person that's tackling it even in two similar ways.
Mhm.
So it's like, I think that's, it's highlighted the problem, but I don't think we're anywhere close to having a solution or solutions.
I think when it comes to operators, there's a little bit of like keeping your cards close to your chest and sort
I-
of like not necessarily giving away your secrets. Like I've been talking about this a lot with the staffing shortage that we have, and a lot of the venues are treating it the exact same way as we used to. It's just that they have more money in the way of government grants and all that sort of stuff to throw at people. So I'm not going to mention the establishment here in Victoria, but they offered everybody a $500 signing bonus and $500 after 3 months. But you had to start working there within 8 days of like accepting the job. So they were about to like have a whole bunch of people coming out of the pandemic, want $500 bonus to get like work at this place, but then you had to screw over your last employer. And like
Yeah.
that's not the way it works. Like
Yeah.
why would you, this is just insane. And I think that operators like to play close to the chest, and I look at benefits and stuff. Lucky enough I'm in a union setting, so the union has great perks and great cons, but a lot of great perks. And I think benefits, when people look at how much retention and how much replacing people is, because they don't ever look at that, it's just turn and burn. It's like, oh, you'll be fine. The dishwasher's gone. I could just hire another 16-year-old kid to wash my dishes, except they don't want to do it anymore. And I don't blame them for not wanting to do it. But going forward as operators, do you think that we need to sort of take away that division of like the big guys, like the franchise restaurants, because that's what Restaurant Canada really focuses on, sitting down with the big players, and then there's these small little operators who are doing the right thing and trying to make change, but there's a massive disconnect between those two dichotomies, and the lobbyists are siding with the big guys regardless.
I mean, I think absolutely. Like, and I don't think that there's enough of an appreciation for smaller businesses that are just like they're trying to get by right now. They're trying to pay rent, so having to compete in that sphere is just it's not even the same category.
Mhm.
And that like the grants are the same like amount of money whether you're Cactus Club or
Yeah.
you're like the neighborhood bar down the street. So it doesn't really make much sense to me in that regard. And it's just, I think it's just really insanely hard to ask some of these things of small businesses, but um, there has to be there. And then, when you're talking also about like even splitting shifts,
Mm.
sometimes that's not even a possibility for a bar that only has two bartenders on. So it's, I think there's like, I think we need to like start digging a little deeper to find the answers to some of this stuff. But it's definitely, you can't just look at the bigger players because first of all, I don't even think that they have the capacity to be as creative as they need to be to find solutions to stuff like this. And yet, they're the ones that are in the position of power, really.
Mhm. Offering $1.50 more for a server is a very intensive thing.
Mhm.
So let's get into 2022. I keep thinking it's 2023 already because everything's been so crazy. And I was like thinking December 2021, and I walked in as like 2023 to my controller the other day. He's like, no, Shawn, it's 2022. It's fine. What is your big master plan for this year? Obviously, there's no end in sight when it comes to like when this is all going to be finished and over with, which is horrible to think. When I thought September last year for sure. I put my money down on September last year and that didn't happen. What's your big plan for 2022? Have you got stuff in the wings? Have you got definites and then stuff in the wings that as soon as everything rolls back, you'll be able to put into play?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of. I've got to be honest. Like the biggest thing that happened for me during 2020 was the inability to plan anything.
Mm.
So, like looking at 22, I am planning it as if it's fine, and if we have to adjust, then I'm going to work backwards from there. I'd rather be like prepared for all of the things versus prepared for like everything. Not our
Mhm.
world not being able to move forward. So right now, my little like lockdown incubation period is what I'm calling it. Like bouncing off the four walls of my apartment. I'm working on getting the Supernova like business plan all sorted so that we're ready to go for hopefully early next year. So that's kind of that plan. And then Black Lagoon, we are planning on hopefully 6 or 7 cities this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that announcement's going to be coming out probably in the next few months. But yeah, we want to do like, like I said earlier, custom little mermaid glass and like some of our own personalized merch, which I'm really excited about because I just it might be the like goth metal kid in me, but the branding speaks to my heart,
Yeah, always with the merch. Always with the merch.
Always, yeah.
Always.
Speaking of branding, I've just given Trash Collective thanks to Kasira Hill. She's out of Chicago, and she is like 24-year-old branding wizard, and I love her so much. She's just given the Trash Collective a little bit of a brand refresh, so we're going to be creating some more content. We're swapping trash, what used to be tiki. We've kind of lost that word for for some obvious reasons, but it's going to be morphing into the Trash Collective, but also that like kind of frees us up to be able to do less tropical style drinks. We're going to be doing a little bit more like refined stuff, so we've got some more content dropping on there, more stuff dealing with locality, and we're really going to be deep diving into some Canadian ingredients and stuff like that. So that's really fun. It's really funny. I like literally before this I like wrote out everything for the year. So that's kind of like so funny. That's kind of like my plan, and then might be working on an app, but that's an announcement for a later date. Not my own personal app, my God, too much stuff, but somebody else's that's kind of a recipe forum that I'll be doing some drinks for.
Yeah, that's like me when people go, so what do you actually do? I'm like, you don't really want to hear this. Makes me sound like a douche. I've got so much stuff going on. Like, I'm not going to tell you everything. To be honest, like the Trash Collective stuff that you have done in the past, like we have cutting board oleo at Clive's because we freshly squeeze everything to order. So it's a la minute. So we always have a lot of fruit left over. So cut fruit and squeeze fruit. So we use that all for that. And then obviously, because we're a massive Negroni bar, we always have way too many peeled oranges for the cocktails than we ever need orange juice for. So we freeze all the peeled oranges when we make an orange oleo for our tap cocktails and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we go through way too much. We have three oleos that are all based on like wasted fruit. Grilled grapefruit champagne oleo, and we acidify everything, and
that sounds so good.
Yeah, that one goes in a rosemary mezcal cocktail. Well, that sounds like you're busy, and I'm looking forward to Supernova. With the difference in Supernova, like the original Supernova was like ballroom, like 1950s lobby of a massive hotel in Chicago or something like that. What's the plan? You were saying about burlesque dancers and more folding in more of your personal traits. What are you sort of looking for? Is it still going to be like 100-seat space, or are you looking for something a little bit smaller?
Honestly, it'll still be probably not 100 seats. It'll probably be around like more of a 60, 70 seat venue, but still like a larger capacity. We had to shut down in the current space, that just so anybody listening isn't like, oh, is it going to open up in the same space? We're going to be looking for a new space. It's a little bit less disco ballroom, because I think ballroom was very much tied to what that space was. It's still going to retain like, the unicorn in the front entrance and like that sense of like whimsy and like, crystals hanging off the bar, and like there's a witch's head constellation that's really stunning. That's like, it's got all of these like lovely purples and blues. So it's the branding very, very much going to be tied to the Supernova witch's head constellation. So there's going to be that little bit of tie in there, but like that sense of like whimsy, and we'll have a stage space still so that we can have performances and have a little bit more of a tie to performance art as well. And then a little bit less disco and a little bit more indie, but still I think disco is still very much alive. It just maybe not in such a traditional sense, in more of like a reinterpretation of disco.
I love it. Um, so let's get down to a bit of a thought leader, because I do class you as like one of the I idolize you in the industry,
Oh,
basically.
thank you.
You're like I fanboy out pretty hard. Luckily enough, like when I fanboy out to people I don't know, it's a little bit different to people I still fanboy out about, like yourself. Because I remember, geez, 2009, 2010. A friend of yours was working in Victoria, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. It'll come to me. But he was talking about you, and I was raving about all the stuff you were doing in Vancouver. And then I was like, oh, well, I got to meet you. And so we sort of caught up. But as a thought leader in the industry, as a hospitality entrepreneur, what would you say to the youngsters who it's been tumultuous, and I think we've lost a lot of younger industry people. I think there's a big gap between the young generation and I will say my generation, because I think that you're at the very, very tail end of my generation.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a big gap of knowledge and passing of the torch and stuff like that. But as a hospitality entrepreneur, what would you suggest to people who are seeing our industry being broken and are like, well, I don't want to open my own place anymore. I don't want to open my own restaurant. I don't want to do consulting. I don't want to do, like, it's a lot of risk.
Yeah.
What's your big piece of advice?
Oh, I think that like I think about the plans and the businesses that I've always sort of been that way where I'm writing down ideas for things. I don't think I could do it any other way, but that doesn't mean like it has to look the same for every single person. I think mentorship alone, looks really, really different. So I guess a piece of advice. I know that I've been talking about mentorship a lot today. Um, and I think the biggest thing with finding a mentor, because that those people are also few and far between, and it's a big reason why I left, Vancouver at the time. And plus, they're focused on like trying to get their businesses back open and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But finding somebody that like you aspire to, whether it's someone close or someone far away, I always say that like it's so easy to get trapped into like feeling isolated, especially when you're doing like 12, 14-hour shifts as a bartender and you're exhausted. And, if you can just like write down, three people while you're having coffee on a Sunday that you like regularly kind of like check their Instagram and see what they're
Hmm.
doing. Or if they're in close proximity, like just being able to like go have a coffee with them. Cause like sometimes you need to feed on other people's energy to kind of remind yourself as to why you're doing something. I did make a resolution a few years ago. I always make New Year's resolutions. I'm one of the few. I don't know if they stick or not, but whatever. I made a New Year's resolution to like surround myself with people that I was inspired by, and I spent that
Mm.
whole year kind of like cultivating relationships that I probably wouldn't have had I not had that purpose or intention in mind. And it really did kind of help me like be able to look at them and see what they were doing, even though one of them's in Hong Kong and like the other
Mm.
one's in like Mexico City, and I was just like, hey, what are you doing? Like, I just want to see what you're up to. And like they send me a video of like, oh yeah, I'm working on opening this bar, or like, oh, today I'm feeling really shitty, and it kind of like makes you feel like you're okay as well. So I would say that like don't get locked in that bubble of like negativity and sort of feeling like you're alone in all of this and you're not learning enough, or like this might not be the industry for you. And that's okay, it might not, but like find, at least make the effort to find some other people that you aspire to be like, and then just spend some time like checking in, and you'll know whether or not like that it reignites the inspiration, or like maybe it doesn't, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I mentorship has been big for me because I'm the old dude in Victoria, obviously. So I'm always the guy that people are like, can we sit down and have a coffee? But to be honest, like my reinvigoration last year, I my right hand guy actually just turned 23. 23 years old. He was 9 when I took over Clive's the original time. Like he was 9 years old. Him and my other guy, Cade, he's 25, have both reignited me because their passion and their flame together is insane. And sometimes I got to go, no, just relax a little bit. We don't need to rush. Let's just take it easy. But some of the stuff they come and bring to me, I'm just like, because I don't work the bar much at all anymore because I have those two, and they don't wake up sore the next morning wondering like who hits you with phone books all night long.
Yeah.
But I do agree. Like if you want to find a mentor, just Instagram, Facebook, something like that, reach out to them. And if they say no, that's the worst they can say. They may say yes. You know, it's one thing that I've got to get out of, because sometimes I get in my own head of being the older guy, that I don't, doing podcasts and stuff like that are great, but like sometimes I get caught up in my own head of like, well, you got no one to talk to. How do you like get through this when how many people have got the same life experience, so on and so forth. So man, I could keep talking to you for hours. Like, and we could easily get into lockdowns and stuff, but I feel like that just goes into a place where I don't think the government has understood our industry at all since day one, to be honest, with how much money we bring in and the people we have, because of the diverse nature of that university kid coming in washing dishes one night a week. That's still a staff member that we have to look after. Like, but I don't think the government counts that person as a staff member, because you only work 40 hours a week at one job, just like your parents did and the parents before them. But so for everybody listening, where can they find you? Like when it comes to like social media and online, because we're all digital now.
Yeah. So my personal Instagram tag is at Kelsey Ramage. What drinks? The Trash Collective is going to be the new trash. It's called Trash Telly now. We're in the process of like just next week we're going to be switching it over to just Trash Collective. So you'll be able to find like recipes and kind of that sustainability content on there. But if you just want to catch me, a lot of people just reach out, and I'm totally here for like questions or like struggles or whatever. I'm here, and that's why I have an Instagram and a public facing face. I don't know how I was saying that, but yeah, it's just at Kelsey Ramage.
So you don't have assistants answering all your Instagram messages?
No, not my personal ones. I think like when we start rolling into like something, summer when it's super busy, I'll probably get somebody to manage the business ones, but I always manage my own personal one.
Yeah, the amount of times I get emails like, "Oh, if you could pass, if Shawn's team could pass this along to him, we're just wondering if we could chat." I'm like, "There's no team. What team are you talking about?"
We work in hospitality. Like, come on.
I'm just going to create an assistant for myself. Oh, hello, this is Shawn's assistant, Daryl. Yes, he's available at this time, just so I look really pimp.
Yeah.
Well, it was lovely chatting to you as always. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to traveling again and crossing paths, hopefully in Toronto or vice versa. If you do want to get into like local ingredients, if you come to the island, I'll hook you up with foragers and they'll take you out into the hillside to find stuff.
I would love that. Yeah.
I have my guy, and he constantly just messages me. He's like, "I've got 30 pounds of XX. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Well, it's just 30 pounds of berries." And he's like, "Yeah, it's been a great season." I'm like, "Okay, I'll take them, put them in the freezer, use them later on." Tips, mushrooms, anything. He's got it. That's so cool. Thank you so much for your time, Kels. I really appreciate it.
It was good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot. Bye.